Fuck.
I mean, listen, I know I'm usually good about it, but I have now clicked
No,
record.
man. That was like a false start. Music cue doesn't even go here. We're not even doing the grinding metal part. We're going. Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Perez. As always, I'm joined by a menagerie of buddies, and these buddies are joining me on the Pig Iron podcast. Buddy the first, my buddy Jake. Buddy the second, the ghost and visage of one Ruben, who will materialize soon enough. Buddy Eliza Gager, and buddy new partner in crime, Lucy. And today, yes, we're joined by Caitlin. Caitlin, how you doing?
I'm good. Very excited to be here.
Yeah. I was basically going to, gosh, I'm sorry, just spaced this. Eliza, you were actually going to introduce Caitlin. I'm aware of your output and stuff as a social media personality, but in terms of actual output, Eliza is much more knowledgeable than myself.
Yeah, I was going to say also, I know you personally. In my head, I go, that's Twitter, Cait. But I don't know if you have another, like a way that you go by throughout the whole internet. I know that right now you're Punished Cait on Twitter.
Currently, yes. But no, actually, Twitter Cait is just my legal
yeah.
my legal name at this point. Cait is fine. My real name's Caitlin, but over the past couple of years, I picked up Cait.
That's what's up. Well, Cait is very well known on Twitter for being both extremely beautiful and also very funny, as well as a extremely good hunter-gatherer of internet content. Really good screenshots originate on Cait's Twitter quite a bit. Cait's Twitter is something that you see used as a source for screenshots and stuff posted elsewhere quite a bit. So you've probably seen her around. She's also famed just for being good at makeup and also very beautiful. So we wanted to get her on specifically to talk about how to take a good selfie, which is a subject that I get asked about quite a lot. You don't have to be beautiful to take a good selfie. That's kind of the crux of the issue that I want to push here, is that good lighting, good technique, and knowing your angles will do all the work for you. You don't have to be good at makeup. You don't have to be good at anything. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So someone actually asked me recently how I met Cait, and I don't remember. I have no idea. I think we probably just started following each other on Twitter, and that was it.
I don't remember a time I don't think there was a before time.
No.
Before we followed each other. We've just followed each other since the dawn of time.
Yeah.
As soon as you made your Twitter accounts, it was just there, out of the blue.
Yep. There is an understanding on social media between hot girls. So, like, if someone is like a hot girl on social media, there is a magnetism, unless one of them pisses the other one off, and then there's kind of an enmity that lasts for years. But otherwise they sort of tend to draw together like beads of mercury. Go ahead. I'm
No, I apologize. I was not trying to interrupt it, Ernest. All I was going to say is sometimes it's like good natured, and other times it is like Kurosawa, like death oath shit. It's intense.
Yeah, it can get bad. I've got it. There are a few enemies out there, but we're not here to talk about that today.
We're enemies.
Talk about
no enemies.
Very thankful I do not have the Twitter enemies.
Don't do it. Not even once.
But with selfies, I do think that. So my whole thing, I don't know how much I'll have to say this episode because I'm not a selfie taker. And it's not in particular because I don't like looking at myself or anything like that. It's that like Eliza said, I see so many selfies, and I don't have anything really to consider about the person taking the selfie. My first thought is simply, that's a bad photo. And once I know it's a bad photo, it's like, well, that's not even like, there's so many little things, and I only know this from working at a company that made photography education material. It's like an osmosis that I ended up having to know, like, sort of where light can go, where light looks good, basically, is a big one. But that's something that phones don't tell you or show you. And with the ease with which you can just snap a picture without stopping to go, hey, is this in focus? Hey, how's my lighting look? I think that's the stuff that is like interesting to think about when you're taking selfies. And the stuff that I was trying to be like, what do I have to say today? And it's really just that, like, I just want people to take better photos. I don't care how you look, dog. Just make that lighting good.
Yeah. It's a public service, you know? It's like one less shitty picture that I have to see scrolling on my feed. In that sense, it is very very socialist. It's praxis, you could say.
Yeah, honestly, like, everyone should get photography lessons if everyone's going to have a phone.
I agree. It just makes things easier. It also just teaches you how to look at images and how to interpret images, which is all we do all day. Anyway, and I think it increases the depth of your enjoyment for an image. If you're like, I like this picture, but because I've had some education, I know why I like this picture. And it just gives you more stuff to think about, which is fun. You know, even if you're not using it for any professional reason or any material reason, it's fun. It blows your brain up a little bit. So, Cait, the other day in the Discord server that you and I are both on, someone asked you, how do I take a good selfie? And you delivered concise and understandable instructions that I would love for you to repeat here. So how do you take a good selfie?
Absolutely. And you mentioned that you've been asked this question often, and, you know, as have I. But I mean, first of all, you start it in my case, you start 15 years ago with the worst camera you've ever seen in your life. You don't actually have to start that way, you know, these days. But the biggest thing that people have to kind of overcome when they're in the very, very early stages of taking selfies is kind of, you have to break that connection in your mind between you as a concept and, you know, the image that's going to be displayed on your phone. And you also have to break that kind of, that expectation you have that, you know, you're going to be a model at a photo shoot, you're going to take one perfect picture and you're going to put it online, and that's going to be it. And here's the hot girl secret. Every good selfie that you've ever seen anyone post, it was probably 15 to 30 images that they then kind of whittled down to, you know, which one, you know, where's the lighting best, where's you know, which of these images is the most well composed. So that's the hot girl secret. So if you've ever taken your phone out and snapped one picture and been like, I give up, this is the worst picture I've ever seen in my life, and I'm just never going to try again. You have to, like, it's going to be a process, and you have to kind of, you know, like, you don't always have to set aside 3 hours to do a whole photo shoot, but having that kind of forgiveness for yourself and that understanding that it's not just going to be perfect right out of the gate, I feel like makes it not only easier, but a lot more fun, the process, because you don't feel that tension, that expectation that whatever I'm doing right now has to be the most perfect thing that I have ever done in my life so that I can capture an image of it. If you have to take some more, it's fine.
Yeah, it's free. Take hundreds if you want.
Question. So let's say I need to take selfies. I'm dog shit at taking selfies. But the main thing I think that's hardest for me is like, what is trying to like brainstorm posture, like what kind of pose should I be taking in what given environments? Do you have any like leeway or foresight in that kind of scenario or preferences?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I tend to I tend to look at background, kind of first of all, to kind of place myself, in my room. Of course, I know where all of the, most neutral places are, where you're going to be able to see my closet in the background, where all my windows are and all of that. So once you have a place that you can kind of comfortably place yourself and not really have to worry about, what's in the background, or then, if you're at one of the selfie museums or whatever, then you're picking your background there. So it's either someplace that you're already someplace that you're really going for the background, or just finding a background that is going to not compete with whatever it is that you're trying to capture. As for pose, for posture, what I actually found what I actually find very helpful is to kind of just wiggle it out. And it sounds a little silly, but if you really loosen, and I do this with my face actually, if I'm trying to take a selfie, if I look fantastic and I can't get my facial expression right, sometimes I'll do like the warm-ups that actors do and really stretch out my mouth and my eyes, and then I find it a lot easier. They're all muscles,
Yeah.
So
I was thinking the Human Torch was denied a bank loan, but that's good. Shit.
And then kind of to that to posture, I'm not sure if you meant like the I guess the posture of your whole body, depending if you're doing a full body selfie or just face.
Yeah, just like generally like how you would pose. But
so if you're kind of trying to establish yourself a good groundwork, something that actually, and this is these days it's a little more uncommon, but when I first had a digital camera, and I don't even remember what it was, and it was terrible, and I took so many pictures with it. But when you're using an actual camera, you're not using your front facing camera, and what that does is it makes you what I did for a very long time was take pictures in front of a mirror with the lens pointing toward myself and looking at the picture on the back of the camera in the mirror. That gives you, it gives you not just to kind of direct the photograph itself, but also because then you can associate, the way that you were holding your body, the way that holding your body feels. You can see it actively shifting and I think that's something that's been kind of lost with the advent of phones that all have front-facing cameras. The way that the way that the image is going to come out is always going to be a little different. And I feel like the front-facing camera, it kind of disconnects you from that. Whereas I've still done it. Like I still take pictures when I need to kind of reorient myself. I do the same thing where I'm using the actual camera flipped around so that I can see the composition of the picture. And that also helps, I find, kind of help you figure out your best angles, which is, when you ask someone how to take a good selfie, that's what they're going to say. Any good picture, that's what they're going to say probably 90% of the time is learn your angles.
How would you learn an angle? Is it kind of like the thing of like you draw like an X with your nose, I think is something I've heard, and then like you're checking your diagonals to see how those look towards the camera, or how does that kind of go?
I mean, you can do that. I don't know that I've ever done anything like that. And it's all, I guess, I didn't intend for this too, but it kind of all made a big circle in my head where what you're really going to do is just take 400 pictures of your face from every single possible angle. And there's no...
Reinforce it. I see what you mean.
There's no actual real good way to do it, because even if you're using your front facing camera and you kind of see kind of a prediction of what the image is going to look like, it's not quite the same as the final image is going to turn out. So you just, you just kind of find some angles that kind of look good. You do your little photo shoot, and then you actually go back and look at the actual final images. And then it just becomes kind of like muscle memory.
I get that. That's kind of what you were saying earlier of when you disconnect the camera by using the front facing camera, is that you're locking in this arm angle, setting my body in a certain posture. It makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
The front and rear facing cameras also have different lenses. And those different lenses are going to make you look different. Cameras lie. And it's because the shape of the lens distorts the image that is captured by the phone. And of course, in the case of phones, which we're all using now more than cameras, the phone image is also going to go through software processing, a lot of which we have no access to and we can't control. A lot of the images that are coming out of phones right now are being like retouched and tweaked in different ways that we just don't see. So some of that tweaking is going to be like, if your face is at the edge of the camera frame, for example, it might look stretched out and weird, which will, kind of set off a little red flag in your brain. It's going to look like, oh, that's not me. I don't like that. That's weird. And those distortions are part of the lens. It's not what you look like. You haven't failed at taking that photo. It's all the camera, and it's just something to keep in mind when you're taking those pictures. So if you're doing the selfie, the typical selfie setup where you're looking at yourself in the screen of the phone as you're taking the picture, that's going to make your face look much different than if you turn the phone around and use the other camera lens. Because they are two different cameras and they are two different pieces of hardware. And that hardware makes a big difference. There are some pictures online, examples where they're like, here's the focal distance that we used and here's the lens that we used, and they will take a million pictures of the same model showing you how that model changes. So a big one is that a lot of these, when you're taking a selfie, a lot of the time your nose and the front of your face will look weird and elongated and like drawn towards the camera lens. And that's just a function of the lens itself and a function of being close to you. So generally, if someone's far away from you and then taking a picture of you there, the image of you is going to look a little bit more level, a little bit more flat. And I just want to reiterate that, what Cait was saying earlier is, if you feel like you look good in the mirror and you turn your camera around to take a picture of yourself and it looks like shit, that's not your fault. That's the camera. The camera's fucking up. It's not capturing what you actually look like. And that's scary when you're starting to take pictures of yourself. You get all of these images that are completely unfamiliar, and they're terrifying, and they can cause dysphoria and dissociation, and you're like, oh my god, this is weird. Do I actually look like this? The answer is no. You do not actually look like that. So just remember that the camera is a liar, and the process of taking pictures is a process of making the camera do what you want through distance, light, different kinds of lenses, different ambient settings, and all that kind of thing. So with Ruben was talking about posture, that's a big thing with like professional modeling. I'm not a real model. I don't have a modeling agency or anything like that. I've just done a lot of modeling sort of as a side job. Posture is a big deal when someone's taking a picture of your whole body. And it's helpful because you get a lot of feedback. Like the photographer will be like, oh, don't move your neck like that. Your vein is sticking out. Okay, relax your shoulders to the right. Do it to the left. Blah, blah, blah. So you get this constant feedback of all of the ways that you look bad. And you can sort of incorporate that into your self-image. And that's how you learn your angles as well, by taking those bad pictures. So when you get that bad picture, you're like, oh, that's a bad angle for me, or that's a bad distance for the camera to be, or that's a bad light for me. So I can mark that off. I can put that into my mental spreadsheet as something not to do again.
I just wanted to add in that, even if you haven't done any modeling, what you can do is post your pictures online, and lots of strangers would be very happy to provide you with similar feedback.
Yeah.
Just for,
you can also,
all of us.
Doing something like posting it on Reddit, roast me is, that's like the trial by fire mode. And if you're strong enough, sure, go for it. But you can also just send pictures to your friends and tell them, hey, be really honest with me, which of these two pictures is better, and tell me why. So that's a way to do that that's a little bit more gentle. I did trial by fire by doing, photo shoots and stuff, but the other big thing I did, and I've talked about this a little bit before, we should do a whole episode on it actually, because it's a very good self-employment scheme. I was an art model, a nude art model. So I was naked in front of college students or like drawing groups of old people. And they're not going to tell you that you look bad, because that's not the point of nude figure modeling. They're drawing me because they want to learn anatomy and volume and stuff. But what really freaks you the fuck out is when you get down off the podium during your break and you walk around and you look at everybody's drawings of you. And that, I think, really fixed a lot of the problems I had with my like physical ego, because a lot of these people were not good at drawing because they're students, they're learning. The whole point is to make a bad drawing of me. So I saw insane things. I saw myself really big. I saw myself really skinny. I saw, pieces of anatomy that the artist fixated on and like obsessed about and made really big. So I looked cartoonish. Some of them made me super ugly. And it was just like all of the things about my face that can be generalized, like my eyes are slightly close together, and that would be very emphasized in amateur drawings, because that's what we do when we are amateur. We emphasize the things that we notice instead of sort of smoothing them out into a more realistic drawing. So that fucked me up. And then I sort of got through the shadow of the valley of death and seeing myself a million different really terrible ways, and looking at all these people in a room who apparently thought I looked like that was like, okay, there's just nothing I can do about this. It's just my job. And it gave me a big dose of body neutrality, which I think is something that we want to emphasize with selfies, but also just as a general life approach. It's not, your body is not bad or good. It's a body. It exists in space. Lucy's had her hand up for a while. Lucy, what's up?
Oh, it's okay. This definitely could wait. So, what I've been wondering this entire time is, you briefly mentioned that images are getting processed in a way that's not always apparent to the user.
Correct.
I was wondering, I know you've spoken a lot, Eliza, about like how TikTok will automatically like filter videos of people's faces. But
Yes,
Cait, I was
yes.
wondering, what do you think of like doing face tuning for people's like selfies, that sort of thing?
So my opinion on this is of course, I'm of many minds. It's very easy to say I am, of course, fully in support of face tuning. I feel that you should be able to control the way that you're seen. I don't feel like there should be kind of that you should have, an obligation to present images that aren't exactly the way that you want them. With that being said, it is very hard to consider that in a vacuum, especially if you encounter, for example, a lot of those, beautifying TikTok and Instagram filters. A lot of them are skin lightening, face slimming, nose slimming, and none of these things exist in a vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like face tuning, it can kind of encourage the natural tendency that people have to try to beautify themselves toward a very, very narrow, white European appearance, and especially sometimes without your knowledge. Like I said, a shocking number of the Instagram filters that are just beautifying are also, they make you look very, very different. The other strong opinion that I have is, of course, I support, again, like I said, being able to present yourself in a way that you're truly happy with. The other piece of that is when you see influencers on Instagram or anything who are specifically promoting their face for some reason or another, especially, you know, for makeup or for skincare. And they're very, very much changing those images. It's definitely dishonest, which, you know, I feel like it sounds a little, you know, obvious at this point, but, you know, presenting yourself.
It sounds obvious, but a lot of people are not, they're not detecting it. They're not noticing it anymore. And that's really bad for our brains. If we look at an image and we think, oh, okay, I have a background in Photoshop. I know what they did to this picture. I know that this person doesn't look like that. That's one thing. You can appreciate it as art, as like a created image. Like Jake was saying, everybody should have some photography education. Everyone should have some retouching education too. I think that there should be a presentation in middle school or elementary school, you know, like 3rd grade, where somebody goes to the classroom and shows you on a computer, here's how I took this picture of this celebrity with stretch marks, cellulite, a fat belly, and a double chin, and turned it into the picture that ends up getting published, right? Because that's vital information to have to prevent this kind of madness that comes with only seeing processed images and comparing yourself to them, right?
I think the times I have seen that was in high school tech center. They had like a graphics department. It wasn't as widespread or adopted, but they were in the early stages of like teaching kids like, and also when Photoshop licenses were a lot more affordable, and especially school ones, but that's besides the point. And yeah, there was like light retouching and stuff for like commercial projects because people wanted you to be able to learn how to make logos for companies and shit like that.
Right. There's a level of retouching that I think of as like cleaning up an image for a professional use. Like if you've got an image of a stock image of a model, there are things about that model that would be distracting to a casual viewer who is viewing that image as like an advertisement or something. So usually they'll like, if you've got a really big zit that day, they'll take it off. Or, you know, your neck looks weird because you were about to sneeze and that's just the photo that they chose. Stuff like that I think of as like cleaning up an image. And then the really heavy face tuning and the really heavy skin retouching and stuff like that, that's sort of a level. It's a level beyond. I think everybody needs to know about this stuff. I am definitely seeing Zoomers who are on Tumblr mostly, you know, less on TikTok, less on Twitter, but more on Tumblr, who are doing independent fashion, underground fashion, and like avant-garde stuff, are really starting to reject the obligatory face tuning and the obligatory body tuning stuff. They're still taking, you know, interesting, dynamic, and flattering poses and lighting and makeup, but there does seem to be a push away from super skinny, super smooth, super white, and moving towards more like being interested in somebody looking strange. Or somebody looking different, because we're sick of it. We're tired. This is a pendulum that swings politically all the time. So you go to different eras of photography and you'll see more or less retouching. And retouching started as early as photography did. Retouching is not a new thing. They used to retouch pictures in the Victorian era when photography was invented. They did very heavy retouching because they considered photography to be kind of an out branch of painting. So there was a lot of painting and correcting on top of tintype and ambrotype photos. And you'll see that particularly in pictures of women wearing corsets. If you check the areas, and this is, you know, the mid 1800s up until the very early 1900s, check their waist, you will be able to see scruffy sort of scratches and, you know, marks and stuff, and they will have photographed the model in a way that her waist is silhouetted on a background that is easy to retouch. So there was that kind of retouching and deception going on way back. And so we've always been doing that, and being aware of it and seeing it is comforting to me, because I know that it's sort of it's a human culture thing.
What's up, Jake?
You actually, I raised my hand and like Eliza like basically 360 no scoped what I was gonna say. which is that no, in a good way, in a good way, in a good way.
Well
because
done.
I have personal experience not with like actually retouching, but I worked for this company that did primarily Photoshop educational materials.
Huh?
And I was going to bring up the point that there is there's no reason for an average person to look at a movie poster and go, how many layers are on this? How much masking was involved in doing this? All of these little things that go into retouching and making someone look essentially not like a real life individual in an image, in a picture, in a still. And I got exposed to that by like having to, like watch these classes or like quality control these classes where retouchers would go through and do this.
Mhm.
And I was going to bring up stuff like Photoshop that you basically nailed and say, like, what do we use in Photoshop? Brushes. Why do we do that? Because it comes from painting, like you said. It is all about manipulation. It's all like there's no. It's so rare that you see a picture these days, any picture that's published that is literally just the raw from a camera. You know what I mean? Like
all of them get processed.
Yeah, everything gets processed. More time is spent by professional photographers in processing, typically, than shooting.
And that's always been true. And the fact that we, in Photoshop, we still call it masking, we still call it dodging and burning. Those are terms from darkroom photography. So yeah, as I learned that as just someone in my 20s working for this company, it really did change how I started to look at images, and then I started to notice things like the beautifying apps more clearly. And it became, I don't have a particular opinion about them, but it is very clear to me sometimes when I see a photo, the mental note I'm thinking is, well, that person looks different in real life in some way, shape, or form. Oh yeah. You walk past the magazine rack at the grocery store. And the way that
it's
you
egregious
see those
these days.
Pictures is completely different. It changes everything about the way that you see the world.
You notice air's a lot quicker.
What I was going to ask was, with regard to that, we've been talking a lot about camera awareness, composition, or whatnot. What I kind of was curious about was we've been talking a lot about digital format. Have you taken selfies on traditional film? And if so, is there any like that you prefer or a method of shooting with traditional physical film?
I have. Cait, what about you?
No, this is going to be
that's cool.
Wheelhouse, unfortunately.
That's cool.
I only have a little bit of experience with film because film is just, it's so much more stuff. You need so much more stuff in order. Yeah, it's expensive. You literally pay for it every time you push the shutter. So it's a little different. And I will say that even the professionals who are shooting on film, and I have been shot on film for photo shoots a lot. One of my favorites, I think all of my favorite photographers that I've worked with as a model shoot film. There is something different about a film image, and part of it is the commitment that you have to make to the image, because retouching film is so much more difficult. You physically have to do it in a lab. Some photographers are taking film photography and then retouching it, and something that I noticed around the aughts is that a lot of the film photographers that I was working with switched to digital. They switched to DSLR and just completely lost it. They lost everything that made their film photos so good. And a lot of what made it good was the immediacy, the reality, the authenticity, whatever you want to call it, of the film. It's physical. It's literally a physical material medium, which does make a difference. And I'm saying this as a person who is a professional digital artist. So I'm not just being reactionary about it. But a lot of these guys would start doing stuff like selective coloring, which is where, there's a black and white picture of a woman and there's only one piece of color in the whole picture, and it's like the rose that she's holding, or it's her lipstick and it's bright red or whatever. That looks like shit. And when you are a boomer who has been shooting film,
Fucking lame.
You get the DSLR and you're like, oh my God, I can do all this cool stuff. And you want to play with all your toys. And so they start producing these images where they hit like the solarization filter in Photoshop. And we're like, oh, that looks so cool. And just, it looked like shit. Because they got distracted by the technology, I think, and forgot their founding principles.
If I can
So
jump in
with-
here. Sorry, Liza, can I cut you off for a
What's
second?
up?
I did do film photography in high school, so I did get a short stint of
give
that
it up,
feel. And I didn't have a phone. I was very against phones in high school, mainly because it was a way to avoid my parents to say if I don't want a cell phone, they can't contact me when I'm out, and they have to tell, and I have
You
to
were
go find a
right.
payphone.
You
True
were
facts.
Yeah, fuck them. But the main thing that also fucked that over was that I was like, I'll take photography as an elective. I'll fuck around. And the amount I dislike a DSLR is exactly because of the principle that you need to, like, when you do a photo, take 15 photos, you know? And that was like most tutorials or most ways they would tell photographers to do stuff is like, you know, it's a safety, just do 20, it's free. Your card holds 1,000 photos. You're going to be outside for 3 hours. Just use it all. But there was something about the fucking bolt action reloads on an analog camera where it's like, when I
it's
take
so
this
good.
fucking shot, I got to be ready. I got to be in focus. This shit has to go. I got a picture of a bird and I got its feet in focus and I fucking shit my pants. That was the coolest shit in my fucking life. That was like, that's the pink mist at half a mile. That shit was dope.
Fuck yeah.
These are some very mixed metaphors.
I know what you're talking about. I'm also told a lot by photography teachers. They keep talking about how like the camera is a gun, and it gets pretty real.
Oh my god, dude! When
It is,
when I worked at the photography company, hey, what are we doing today? Oh, we're shooting kids.
Pretty good. Every morning.
Damn it! Every time.
Get on the
Line them
bus.
up and shoot
Dude,
them.
yeah.
Put them up against the wall and shoot them.
I don't know this. I don't know this fucking guy. I just
Get on the
gotta
candy
say,
cigarettes.
I had an additional question, Cait. Like just as an offhand thing, like, what's a place you would say selfies happen most often? Like venue wise, just like if you ever had the impulse to do it.
Where does the average person?
Where would that happen? Like most often?
I would say probably percentage wise the most the most selfies are at any moment are currently being taken inside bar women's restrooms.
Yes.
I was about to say that.
Wow.
It's every single time I went out
Yeah.
drinking, I was taking a ton of Snapchats in the fucking bathroom.
Mhm.
And
It's
if
bad.
that bathroom has bad lighting,
Even
fuck that
better.
venue. Fuck that venue. Like they owe us good lighting in those fucking bathrooms. The best
It's
lighting,
just sort
by
of
the way.
yeah.
Sometimes they'll put lights like vanity lights all around the outside of the mirror, and that's the best lighting because it's like a huge ring light. So if you find a good selfie mirror, it's like finding a fucking pot of gold, right? Like you remember that, you're like, oh, I'm in this bar again. Got to get a selfie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a like kind of it's the culmination of a lot of things. It's, you know, you have a couple drinks in you, you're a little bit more, you know, your inhibitions drop. So kind of that fear that you have in your head, like, what if I take this picture and it's the worst picture I've ever seen, and then I have to cope with the fact that I live like that for the rest of my life, that this is just what I've been looking like and no one told me. So when you kind of have those inhibitions lowered, you know, you're probably with your friends, you know, you're having a great time, you're like, I'm feeling good, I'm going to take a picture. It's the combination of, you know, you're usually alone in there, so it's like, what's the harm? There's a mirror, you know, you're
You've
probably
just
all
touched
done
up
up.
your makeup.
Exactly.
You just powdered your nose. Or
You're out
whatever.
looking great. After that, I would probably have to say probably the most selfies take place in your house. That's where I take the most selfies. It's where I'm comfortable, you know, no one's and I've been taking selfies long enough that I don't actually really care if anyone's watching me take selfies. There's been a lot of times that I was taking a selfie on a train and, you know, another human being was looking at me like I was a cockroach, like just absolutely. But it's just whatever. I don't care at this point. But, you know, there is also that kind of comfort where, you know, I'm in my house. The only person that's going to see me is my pet or, you know, my family, my partner, whatever. You know, you don't really have to worry about someone walking in and like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Just from the comfort level, you know where all of the, you know, where the blank walls and all of your windows are. And I actually have a picture from the first time that we were touring our apartment. And it's me in what is now our bathroom mirror. And I was like, look at the lighting in this apartment.
Yeah.
and I have that on my Instagram still. But just kind of the comfort level, just, you can be home, relax. Again, you might have a glass of wine, feeling a little toasty. I always look great against, the specific wall. I'm right here in front of my window and I know how, so I feel like outside of, outside of a bar bathroom, I feel like your house is probably, for me at least.
Yeah, a lot of times also like you'll be in front of your mirror in your bathroom or your vanity or whatever, and you'll have just gotten your makeup done and you've got your light on that you use to put your makeup on, which is usually pretty good light because you need to be able to see shit. So everything's fresh, like your makeup hasn't oxidized and slid around yet. You're like you're off the factory floor. So that's a great time to take a selfie, is like before you go out, because you can see the makeup before it completely falls apart. I'm very greasy, so any foundation that I put on is floating on a layer of grease after between 45 minutes and 2 hours. Regardless of any primer that I use or setting spray, doesn't matter. It will be coming off of my face. So getting that early selfie is important to me. Lucy, you've got your hand up. Oh, sorry, Cait. What were you saying?
Just real quick. Just kind of, in the same token, even if your makeup, does start to look bad, your house is where all your makeup lives. So, right. If you're out and about and you're like, oh, I want to take a selfie, but then your camera tells you that your makeup is really not up to par. Sometimes it's like, well, can't do anything about that. Guess no selfies today at your house.
Who was it that said before you go out, take a Polaroid of yourself? And this was like back in the day. I think it was like Coco Chanel or somebody said, before you leave the house for the night, take a Polaroid. Because back in the day, of course, everybody had Polaroids. And what she was saying is just get that last look at yourself that's not a mirror. And that's going to tell you, first of all, what you were going to look like in any photographs that people take of you that night, if you're, going out to an event or something. And also just sort of give you a different view of yourself. I wish I could remember which celebrity said that. It's sort of one of the, I think of it as like female wisdom. This is like things that your mom tells you once and you remember for the rest of your life. And so that's one of the things that was said back in the day, was take a Polaroid. Lucy?
So when it came to lighting, one thing I wanted to ask, and this could be either you, Eliza, or Cait, both of you really, like kind of towards the start of 2020, like ring lights really blew up and everyone started having one in their house. Do you two have like an opinion on like how many people have like just gravitated towards this particular type of lighting setup and how it's impacted like the selfie landscape?
So the thing about ring lights is the first time you use a ring light, you're going to think, I never want to be seen without a ring light ever again for the rest of my life. It is impossible to overstate how big of a difference good lighting makes. A ring light, especially because for, even the best lighting in your home, it's usually going to have one light source, one area that it's directed toward your face. A ring light is directing light at your whole face at the same time. It's like I said, it's it makes such a difference, and you don't know what a difference it makes until you've tried it. And I feel like that's kind of just what happened. Is everyone was like, well, I'm at my house, I might as well get a ring light. And then you get a ring light and you can never not have a ring light ever again.
They're very affordable now too. I mean, you can pick them up on Amazon for like between $5 and $10.
Jesus.
I know that the popularity of
so into the
streaming,
mainstream.
yeah, like the more people have become used to watching streamers who use ring lights and such, the more I've noticed personally, even friends of mine who maybe don't even Twitch stream, but are like, yeah, I'm on Zoom all the time now, I got a ring light.
Right.
Like, that's the level of consumer like marketing that it's getting to.
Well, I mean, it's gotten to the point where you can buy one in a CVS now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Shits are at Ross for like $6
Yeah.
Mhm.
That
I
is
mean,
pretty wild, actually.
there is something to be said also for if you are working from home and you're zooming into an office meeting, looking professional and looking put together, that's a material benefit to you. I mean, that feeds into like capitalist beauty ideals, obviously, but if you're paying $6 and it, you know, contributes to a raise or it contributes to people just like taking you more seriously because you look better, um, that's worth it. I mean, that's worth the investment. And I'm not saying that capitalist beauty ideals aren't fucking horrible and we should abolish them with violence if necessary. But seeing as we exist within material conditions of capitalism, you know.
And
You
there
got
are
to play the game for now.
there are straight
Yeah.
up practical reasons for it too. For instance, I will be at some point in my future conducting therapy through telezoom, through some sort of electronic, HIPAA compliant software,
Yeah.
right? And when that
Sorry.
happens, if there's a big shadow over my face, or if the
Oh,
person I'm
God.
talking to can't see my expressions or can't
Yeah.
read, or if I can't read their expressions,
Mhm.
that does fundamentally affect the thing I'm trying to do, right?
Yeah.
It's not the same as seeing someone in person, and the closer you can get to that through these sort of stopgaps that we have to use because of the fucking pandemic, that's practical to me. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't have a ring light yet, but rest assured, the moment I start having to do that type of thing, I will get one.
Also,
It's
Jake,
not fair. It's not good. It's bad. But
Yeah, I don't like
people-
it, but like,
people judge you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is I will just say one more thing about this because it does play into sort of, you know, the theme of our podcast, which is capitalism and working within capitalism and working for yourself. A lot of something that women with chronic pain conditions say to each other a lot. If you are heading to the emergency room with a urinary tract infection or a migraine that you can't break, or you've got some sort of a rheumatic flare going on, those women put on some makeup, do their hair, and change their clothes. We take off the bathrobe, we take off the pajamas, we put on some clothes, we put on some makeup, because if you show up in the ER looking like a housewife, you know, and your hair's all fucked up and your skin's all greasy, they are not going to take your shit seriously. They're not going to take you seriously as somebody with pain or with any sort of a chronic condition. And I have noticed this. I go to the doctor a lot. You know, I'm chronically ill. If I show up at the doctor looking put together, but not too put together, like that's the other thing. You don't want to look like you're so put together that you don't have any problems. But, you know, a little powder, a little bit of concealer, clean clothes, though you're going to get your medication that way. You're going to get your treatment. You're going to get listened to. If you show up looking like shit, which is how we usually look when we're in the middle of a migraine attack or whatever, you don't get shit. They're like, oh, this person's drug seeking or this person is hysterical, and you get shuffled off. So I think it's a little bit, it is, that applies to everybody, but it is especially important for women and any minority status people whatsoever.
I just wrote down in my notes idea for Patreon episode: lying to doctors.
Oh yeah, I got a whole episode for that.
I feel right. I'd say, yeah, yes. I'm gonna flip a coin on that one.
Although
wanted to-
hilariously, to the same token, if you're going to the ER, you also kind of take care for, and you know, I've had, you know, female friends discuss this. You also kind of take care not to look too good.
Mhm.
You know, especially, you know, or if you're going into work and you want them to know that you're sick, if you look too good, they're gonna be like, no, like this is
Right.
you know, you can't. So there's it's a horrible, you know, constantly shifting scale of trying to look good but not too good. But you know, when I was in the ER for abdominal pain, and I was a wreck. And I think kind of being able to see that on my face helped a little bit. Like, oh, this girl feels that bad that she couldn't even slap some mascara on. Like, oh, something's wrong in there.
Oof.
Yeah. Yeah.
This all reminds me of another thing, kind of related, where I've had friends where they would have like guys that are their boss, and like if they weren't sick but they wanted to get out of work, what they would do is they would just like come in without makeup, because some men just are
Yep.
so stupid that they can't tell. Or
They
I
can't
guess
tell.
that they well they aren't the ones putting it on, so I guess it's part of why they can't tell, but also like maybe just think a little bit.
Well,
but-
they've just never paid attention. Like even if they live with women, like they just don't.
Right. So
Yeah,
like if they didn't want to go to work, like they would show up without makeup on, and the guy would just like,
Yeah.
assume that they were super sick because they just so like hot tip for anyone who wasn't already doing that.
Yeah. It's very true.
I've actually done my makeup so I look sicker when I was already sick, but I was like, my boss he's not gonna care, he's not gonna let me go home, so I did my makeup to make myself look worse, which it was a very long time ago. I think I worked at I think it was when I was working at an IHOP maybe, so not like a super high level of responsibility or anything there, but taking using a little bit of green to wash out all the nice healthy pink in your face, and then playing up the bags under my eyes as opposed to covering them. It all kind of helps, and then you walk in and they're like, oh, that's no good, please go away.
This is an advanced strategy and I love it.
It is.
Strategically, that's valuable.
We're undoing 60 years of feminism here.
This is high level stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say, no comment on that one. That shit's too depressing. We have things to do. I don't know. My solution would just be outlandish, spirit gum, facial prosthetic that is kind of spirit gum based. Just a little seltzer tab.
Yeah.
One thing
and
I've
then
done
it looks like I have a chemical burn.
Like
and
a
then I go,
blood
ooh,
capsule.
ah.
A blood capsule you can bite when you're talking to your boss, so the blood just kind of starts to
sorry, that's been happening all day. Sorry.
Sending an intentionally bad selfie to look like sick as fuck too, right? Like I've actually I once was so concerned with like the believability of me having to call out of work that I like took a picture of my like gross foot and I was like, here's what I'm dealing with right now. And that like
and you crank up like the contrast and like the sharpness and the details, and you're like,
here's all the grossness.
This is what it looks like for real.
This isn't very good for the episode, but honestly, whenever I have to call out sick, especially if I can text, I just say I'm gonna be out sick today, and then I turn off all notifications and don't respond to anyone. I've never been prompted to send a picture, or if people have asked for follow-up information, they just simply don't get it. So I'm really on the opposite end of this, but I am enjoying the tag.
It really depends on how unhinged your boss is, though.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't matter, because if you just say I'm not there and they can't talk to you, what are they gonna do? Talk to a fucking wall? When I come back to work, hey, you were sick yesterday. Fucking
going through the notes now. I'm just crossing out lying to doctors and just putting down lying.
For in my experience, this has been more helpful for having that kind of boss where you're like, if I just call, he's gonna hustle me, he's gonna get so I'm gonna show up for 30 minutes and then I'm going home,
right?
But I want you to see me and how sick I am.
You're like getting ahead of the bullshit.
Yep.
I have one more like prohibited strategy to this if y'all want to hear it.
Absolutely.
When I was in middle school, I would sometimes just want to leave in the middle of the day. So literally I learned how to like control my diaphragm in such a way that it makes me vomit. So I would just like visibly vomit and then get sent home.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard of that before. I've known a few people who figured it out. It's a pro strat. That's like next level.
Yeah, the worst thing is that like once you develop that strategy, it makes being bulimic a lot easier, which is bad.
Yeah, true.
Get a little too good at it.
That's all you can eat.
Yeah. I mean, I actually kind of missed this when we were talking about film. Taking film selfies, the majority of film selfies that you see from, you know, the mid-century, like when people were using film cameras, it's a guy taking a picture of himself in the mirror, you know. That's how the photographers mostly did it.
It's usually a shot in the dark too, because again,
Yeah.
like you would have to do a setup. You don't have a preview image, right?
Yep.
Like,
Answer is you just have to have a friend do it. You do portraits of each other,
and many of them are what's it called? Polaroids. Wow, it took me a while there.
Mhm.
Yeah, a lot
where
of those
they
pictures,
just do that.
Yeah, a lot of those
Hold it out in
cameras also have timers on them. The majority of film cameras have timers, and that's difficult. You gotta hit the shutter and then run.
I feel like it's
And then-
almost a different. The selfie is so aligned with the digital photography era in a lot of ways.
There were not that many selfies before.
Yeah, it was you would just call it a self-portrait almost, right? Like,
It
Yeah,
was so
self-portrait.
risky. You would lose that
Right.
shot you would fuck that shot up most of the time.
imagine
Yeah.
exactly, and I think that speaks to what Cait was talking about with how important it there's the digital photography thing is such a two-edged sword, because obviously it can make for very lazy photographers who are just like click 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 click, but also the practical nature of having really quickly the ability to take like 100 still images and look at all of them and go, actually this is the best one, is pretty fucking cool and could not exist with film photography. So yeah, I always just keep that in mind with like both selfies and pet photography. I can't fucking imagine how hard pet photography would be on film versus what you can get away with doing digitally, as far as just like holding it down and letting letting the moments happen and just choosing the weird best looking one of your cat or your dog.
Yeah, I've never seen a film photo shoot of an animal.
It would be.
I have seen
would be so
a single piece of film, a single portrait of some animal, and that's it. That's all you're gonna get.
I've taken some pictures. I've taken some decent portraits of animals with my instant camera. Actually, I've got one right here. Hang on.
I was getting up, moving the
That's
mic,
pretty
reaching for a camera off screen, coming back.
So this is Chud.
Oh, a cute photo of old Chud.
Aww.
Cat laying
And
down on a carpet,
That's
This
just
is-
like a little
This
gate
is a
behind
nice. It's a nice photo. And the only reason it was a nice photo is because one of the things Chud really liked to do was go out to the balcony in his apartment and lie down in the sun. So because he was in direct sunlight, I knew that I could take that photo because I had the light. So I'm sure there are several photos from this series. I'm sure I had to waste like $5 because that's how much an instant film exposure costs. It costs $1 to get that picture, but it came out. And I've done the same thing with Churchgram. If I knew that I had bright light and I could take the risk, I would take 3 or 4 shots and usually get one. So you can do it, but yeah, it must have been just so fucking hard and expensive. But back in the day, you develop the roll of film. It would be just this long strip of celluloid, and you'd cut it into, I don't remember how many, it was like 8 or something exposures. And then you would put those cut strips directly onto the paper that you were printing onto. And then you would you put a piece of glass on top of it so that it pressed the film down directly onto the paper. And then you would expose that so that the pictures would be like 1 inch square. And then you'd have something called a contact sheet, which is just the piece of paper with all of the little tiny pictures on it. And you can still see these if you could just Google contact sheet and it'll show up. And then they would take a China marker. If you were doing like a professional photo shoot, you do your contact sheet and then you take your China marker and you would mark physically on the contact sheet which pictures were good. You'd put an X through the pictures that you hated. You would, indicate, make little notes about, oh, I like this, the way that the light is falling on her face in this one. And there are a lot of contact sheets online that you can look at of celebrities like, Kate Moss or Marilyn Monroe or whatever. And they're really nice because you can see all of the pictures that were rejected, that didn't get into the book or didn't get into the magazine, which gives you a deeper understanding of like those few minutes or that period of time. I always like looking at contact sheets. That was my favorite part of developing film physically, was making contact sheets, even though most of the pictures were bad. So
I fucking hated making contact sheets. I never did it. I flat refused. We had one assignment where we had to make contact sheet, and I was like, that's fun and all. I just like to look at them on just the enlarger itself and just blast that light down on and just look at the picture outright.
Yeah. Just raw dog that shit.
Just raw dog it. Just get that shit sharp as hell.
Lucy, you had a question?
Lucy, let it rip.
Oh, yeah. So one thing that occurred to me that we haven't talked about yet is, and this was kind of like just a fad when it came to, I guess, the broader selfie culture. But Cait, do you have an opinion on like the use of a selfie stick to get like a different angle on things? Like, how did you feel about that era of selfie taking?
I feel, I mean, again, as usual, I have, 4,000 different thoughts on everything and they're all conflicting with each other. I feel that selfie sticks, I mean, they're a fantastic tool. They, again, I feel very strongly that you should kind of use whatever tools you have in your arsenal to create images that are the way that you want them. And, for a lot of people, a higher angle can create a better image, whether that's just, the way that you look or, catching more in that specific image. They kind of turned into like a hindrance in public. They kind of, you do still have to kind of exist in your own space in public and not necessarily other people's spaces. Which that's just manners, so it did kind of lead to people, and I feel like that's why they were very, they kind of grew controversial, because people didn't all use them with the best manners, and they had to specifically ban them on rides at the Disney parks because people would use them while riding the rides and bash them into the walls and hit other people's ride vehicles. And so they had they had actually,
like, you're in the back and someone's phone like 3 rows in front of you gets loose and you just get fucking zinged in the phone.
150 miles per hour.
Taking that phone, like if it lands on my face, I'm stealing that shit.
It's
if you're not dead.
You actually worked at Disney, right?
I did. Yes, I worked at Disneyland. It was wonderful. I worked at Disneyland, the one in California, for about a year.
Nothing bad happened.
I loved it. I truly loved it. This could fill a whole other episode on its own, just because when they set out to make Disneyland, they set out to make it like going into another world, so that there's no glimpses of the world outside of Disneyland. And that literally is what it's like, including the behavior of the people who visit. It is truly like another world, both in the way that you would meet the nicest, the kindest human beings you have ever met in your life. And it would just be like, do you actually live here for real? Because I can't imagine you out in the world, being, I can't imagine your good soul out in the world. Also, you would meet people mirroring that in the exact opposite direction, where you were like, I cannot imagine how you are out in the world behaving like this, and you've made it to however old you are. It was truly but it was just I love people. I love talking to people. I love kids. I love being around people. I love making people happy. So for me, it was a perfect job. I absolutely adored it. But, as with everything, there were also, some moments where I was like, what in in God's name have I gotten myself into?
God, we gotta have you. We gotta have you back for like a whole
I've
other
always
episode.
appreciated your
Those Disney secrets. What's behind the boat ride?
I've always
Are you in a-
appreciated your Disney postings.
Wait, hold on. Did you work at
specifically-
the? Did you? Sorry, Jake. Sorry, finish that. Sorry, finish it, Jake. Sorry, hold on. I'll wait.
Kate
got
does
too
a lot of
excited.
sharing of the types of people I'm sure she encountered while working at Disneyland, and I love reading those types of weird ass Facebook posts, or especially
fucking
people that were
fascinating.
going nuts during the pandemic. I truly did not know you had skin in the game though, so that just adds to the context of seeing every time. I'm like, oh wow,
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
she's an insider.
I'm sure you've witnessed it. Yeah.
Okay, what is is it Space Mountain that has a Halloween event called Ghost Galaxy? Is that what I'm remembering? Does this sound familiar?
Possibly. Not in Disneyland though. I believe that's a Disney World.
Oh,
Is it?
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
motherfucker. This motherfucker.
I always forget the
or
difference between the two.
Me, I've only been to
Disney-
the Florida one. Yeah.
Disneyland is the little bitty one in
Mm.
California. Disney
Oh, it's in California.
World is enormous.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a real treat the first time you see a picture of Disneyland overlaid with Disney World.
Oh, okay.
It is phenomenally small
Mhm.
comparatively. That was kind of one of the biggest mistakes that they made with Disneyland, where they bought the land that was available with no room for expansion. And so all the times they've wanted to expand, they have to tear something else down. Disney
Ooh.
World in Florida has an insane amount of land. So they're just playing with it out there. They're just throwing stuff around out there. They have a whole safari. Like they have so much land. So Disneyland it is much, much smaller, but also it was a little more, I guess, intimate, which kind of sounds like a weird word to use to describe a children's park, but it was just, the amount of like land that there was made it so people who came to Disneyland a lot, you would probably see them. People would get, the annual pass, come constantly. And, if I'm there every day, if you're there once a week, we're probably going to see each other. People who work at, at Disney World in Florida, I can't imagine they've ever seen the same person twice, in their whole life, is what I imagine it must be like.
That's actually a really funny way to think about it, because I would never imagine that you would see a regular at Disneyland. I mean, at any
Oh
theme
my
park,
God,
at any theme park.
so many of them.
Yeah, that's so funny. That's actually
Mhm.
kind of cool in a weird way. If they're cool people. If they're not cool people, then it sucks.
Oh yeah, there are lots of people who have passes and they just
Mm.
go. They go, many
So
times.
annual pass holders, they like any super fan of anything, are either wonderful people or unbelievably entitled. And the ones who were problems, they're called pass holes, is what we
Hell
called
yeah.
them.
Gosh, sure.
Annual pass holes.
Incredible.
Did
I
you
mean,
have
there's
any
just so many
pins?
types of guy.
Any pens?
Did you have pins that people wanted to trade with you?
So yes, I actually have not a ton, and they're all, just ones that I've bought and kept. If a Disney Parks employee is trading with you, those are provided by the company. So I worked in Fantasyland. There were like the little belts, and there was just bins and bins of pins, and you would have, I don't, 9 maybe, and they would, send you out there. They weren't great pins, because if you go out there with a whole, purse of great
Good
pins,
shit. Yeah,
you lose them pretty quick.
you're gonna be torn apart.
So yeah, exactly. So any pin trading that you do, like while on the clock, those are all pins that we just had in the Fantasyland office. I do have some that I just bought and kept, because I like them. A lot of Stitch. They make real cute pens of Stitch. But yeah, usually if someone's trading with you at the park, they're not their pens.
I'm a big Stitch fan. If anyone didn't understand this part of the conversation, there's a mechanic in Disneyland where you can trade little collectible pins and you can force the employees to give you their pins. Give me your fucking badges.
Oh my
and
God.
You make them. Do they just get one, or do they have to give you one?
They have to give you one.
And then,
I mean, it's not super strict. You know, if a 8-year-old is like, I'll give you this one, but I can't decide between these two, and you want to make his day, you know, it's not like a 1-in-1 thing. But yeah, you know, that's kind of the concept. And it's not really like people never really people never really kind of tried to hustle you out of them. You know, it is a trading mechanism, so they did expect to give me one to get one back. But and this wasn't like, I'm sure this isn't in like the employee handbook or whatever, but there is like, you don't say no to them. Like if it doesn't matter what they're giving you,
shitty pin skid.
If it's the worst pin you've ever seen in your life, and I'm not sure if this would come as a shock to anyone, but there is a massive counterfeit pin market.
Yeah, of course.
Disney pins have been around for a long time. They come out, you know, every
are they
like
giving
seasonally.
Are they giving you a pin? What do you do with it?
You just put it on. You have your little pouch. You have your little bag, and you pin them all to the front. You hand them a pin. They give you one back, and then you just leave them because you know they're
leave it on display, and someone could retrade their traded pin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once it's just a direct
That's
1-in-1 transaction. As long as someone is willing to give you one pin, you give them one pin back.
The conspiratorial part of my brain is on fire right now. You're describing to me.
Oh, let me add to it. Let me add to
world.
it. Let me add to it.
I'm sorry. Go on.
Okay, here's my exposure to pins. I actually did not know. I guess I knew it was a Disney thing in the back of my head. I didn't realize it was something that like actively goes on all the time at Disneyland.
It's huge.
But I have countless Olympic pins because my father used to work with the Olympics and also with Coca-Cola. And so as a kid, I never traded pins, but my dad would come home with like heaps of them. And I had like a big like, what do you call it? Like just like a piece of cloth that was hanging off of a bar in my wall, like a big scroll, except it was
like a banner.
Yeah, and I'm sure they sell these at Disneyland. Like I'm sure, a banner in which you can display all of your pins. And so I've had that in my kids' room forever. I had to take it down recently. I was kind of wondering, like, I kept them somewhere. They're in a storage unit, and I want to look up the value of them someday, and I want to find some Disney crossovers too. But it's just so that to like speak to what you're saying, Michelle, that the pin thing is so wild. It's a very fun. I mean, it's collecting. You know, I collected magic cards for a while, but as a kid, you have these like shiny objects, and they all have little cool things, and they all have different cool. I mean, now enamel pins are huge. This was the genesis of that.
When you're a child, you just want to barter. You don't get to experience a trade economy. When you have your Pokemon cards and you're like, oh, fuck. And you just come to school and you're like, I just need to barter with someone, please, anything.
Yeah.
I want to trade some energy.
And there's like Olympic pin traders who I'm sure overlap with Disney pin traders.
Cait, you were saying?
Wild.
Yeah. A big part of it between, you know, just two guests, which is, you know, what we had to call customers. Sorry. It's very easy to slip back into it, back into the lingo. But kind of the dynamic too between two guests is like, if someone has one and you want to trade them one, they don't have to do it. They can tell you no. You know, if you're trying to give them some, you know, piece of crap for one of their pins that is super rare, they can just tell you to F off. It's like, you know, it's like Pokemon cards. Like they can just, you know, tell you to pound sand. Like the kind of unofficial rules, of course, you know, when you're an employee, you're not trading with your own pins. I mean, you could, like, there, you know, if you had one in your pocket and someone had one to trade, like of course they're not going to, you know, fire you for like some kind of illicit pin trade or whatever. But, you know, if you're just using the ones that are provided, you know, of course you don't tell them no. Like there's no reason that you would. And also, you know, so it was one of those rules that's like not a rule, but also like everyone kind of knew it, you know. But if you're if you're, you know, just some guy and you ask, you know, just some other guy if you can trade pins, he can just tell you no. So to that point, then it's also kind of a, well, do I have anything good enough to trade this guy for something that I really want? Is anything that I have, what am I willing to give up for this? And people have their lists of pins, their wish lists, like their unicorns of pins, because they bring them out, yearly, and then for every holiday, and there's, they'll be stamped with the years and everything, and the designs are different, and people genuinely would be like, I need the one from 2009 that they did during the flower festival, and if I don't get it, I'm gonna die. Like, and that would be, it was like everything to them, so to then it's, that way it's like the stock market for kids.
Exactly. Were they ever like seeded in different rarities to you all as employees? Were they like, okay, here, you get 25 of these and only one of these?
No, like
away.
I said,
Okay.
it was basically like there's so many people that were coming in and out every day. It literally is just, it's a little pouch that has kind of, like you said, just like a big piece of cloth. And you pin, 9 pins or whatever on there. But like I said, none of these were real top tier pins. They were
separate,
gone.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're walking around with commons.
The employees
so
would steal them all.
Yeah,
if they were fucking
exactly.
chases in the employee bucket.
I'm fascinated.
Someone's taking that shit home. It's going to eBay.
Yeah. And this was sort of, it was sort of like, you didn't have to, if you were doing something that involved, greeting, it was kind of, it was encouraged, but it also wasn't mandatory. Like, you didn't line up every day when you clocked in and get your little pin pouch. It kind of was something that it was encouraged, it was elected, you would elect to do it. You'd go grab it, whatever amount of pins were on there, you'd add a couple more to get to whatever number it was.
Right.
And then,
and you weren't
just
the only
wear
way
it
for people to get pens or anything like
that.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
just
funny.
I'm
This
sorry.
is
I'm
such
just
a good setup for a heist movie.
That's what.
go.
Something about stealing the rare Disney pins is bubbling in my brain right now.
And like I said, there is actually a big counterfeit pen market
There you
for
go.
like the older ones, the ones that are really limited. There's like misprints, like it's a whole thing, and they kind of taught us, like, of course I'm out of practice now, but I used to be able to tell a fake one from a real one, just
Hell yeah.
The quality would be lower, it'd be like the enamel on it would be like off center, like, so especially with like the princesses, it was like, that's not what her face is supposed to look like, that's not. But of course, like as an employee, even if you're taking a fake, like, even if you know it, like, you just let it happen, like, it doesn't matter. But sometimes I was like, I want you to know that I know that this is fake. I want you to know that you didn't do a good job. Wherever you got this, you should not go back there.
You do the wood nickel bite.
God.
And you put it in your fucking
That's
pocket.
no good.
You should throw it in the trash
there would
in front of them. You walk over
there would be
15 feet and put it in a trash can.
There would be sharp on the edges sometimes, which, like,
come the fuck on.
Yeah,
it's been in your pocket all day, dude. Get some.
All right,
no, they had a whole
rub it on a stone.
Just for the uninitiated, when she's referring to sharp, that's metal shavings lining the edges of the machine pressed piece of metal.
I'm not a shitty wheat grinder. You're gonna get some of that.
Yeah.
You got to get in there with some little clippers.
I'm imagining you pulling out a jeweler's loop.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, like, usually it's not even that hard to tell. There'd be weird and heavy. There's like there's a print of like
fucking
Disney
lead
ears.
Yeah.
It's just lead and like watercolor.
This bitch heavy. What the fuck?
It was usually pretty easy to tell, but you weren't allowed to call them out or anything, which I do wish. I feel like that would have been very funny at some point. Like, come on.
Should be able to call the Disney cops on them and get them escorted
exactly.
out.
You're going to Disney jail.
Hey, everybody, we got a faker over here.
Oh, no.
Is that what the cops sound like?
Yeah, they all sound like Goofy.
It's just all Goofy. It's just 12. It's just 12 Goofies.
He's in a mascot
That's how
costume, but it has police shit on it. Yeah.
Right.
SWAT Goofies come out of nowhere.
Open carrying an AR.
Just 7 Goofies.
Oh,
they just keep coming.
8 Goofies with
I absolutely
put them in a body bag.
I absolutely feel drawn into this fucking Lovecraftian secret world whereupon we imagine generals in the distance trading their medals for gallantry in war, much like y'all in Disney. But holy shit, that is the most I've ever talked about pins in my adult life.
I wanted to open a conversation.
Not that that's
about
negative.
I want Pinkin to know that they can just do this shit at like any event in public.
Mhm.
We don't have to leave it in Disneyland. Power structures be damned. Let's just make pin trading open.
I mean, technically, the worst they can say is no. You know, like if you ask some stranger if you can have their, you know, their dick butt pin off their purse, and you know, and you'll give them whatever it is
God.
that
My limited edition dick butt.
There he is.
I gotta have
Dick
it.
My
I
all
gotta
gold
have
dick
it, and
butt.
I'll give you my Halloween pusheen from off my denim jacket.
Wow,
Like
that's-
all they can say is no.
That's fair. That's like you're not getting a bad deal in terms of
As long
scarcity.
as you take, you know, if they say no, and you know, as long as you take it, all right, I just asked. Like,
All right,
they
man.
can't, you know.
And then you're standing
they
next to
can
each
do?
other on the bus for 5 more minutes.
No, I just walk off. I just open the doors, walk
the
off
moving-
the
Get
moving,
off your fucking
walk
bus.
off the moving. But
Outta
well,
here. Pull the
I'm out.
rope.
that was the
Okay.
only
Fucking
reason I
roll.
was here.
but yeah, on that note,
Also, if they get surly with you, if you put enough pins on something, it will become a weapon.
Uh-huh.
Those
That's
pistols
true.
are
Counterfeit
heavy.
pins.
to that end, Eliza wanted to kind of wrap us up and some closing thoughts, and then I'll just roll out buddies.
It's been a bit. It's been a little bit. I think we got a whole other episode in
Oh,
us
we would love to have you
on,
back to talk Disney more in depth.
on
Kate.
Disney, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, I would. There is nothing I love more.
I just have
it was
yeah, absolutely. So just a couple closing remarks on selfies. We've been over. Don't be afraid of the camera. You're gonna get bad pictures out of it. Just expect them. You don't have to show anybody. They're just for you and the FBI. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about posture because that's actually a thing. Ruben's right. Something that I was taught in photo shoots, which has really gotten me a long way, is whether you are inhaling or exhaling changes your whole body stance considerably. So if you are inhaling and you got a chest full of air, that makes you look confident and powerful. But if you want to convey more of a vulnerable look or a willowy kind of delicate look, exhaling is what you want to do because it changes the way that your body and your spine is curved. And this is just something, you want to experiment with a camera in front of a mirror and see how you look different ways. Ways to tell if you've got a good side or a bad side. I for example, have a weird little divot on the left side of my nose. It's just, something that is different from the right side of my nose. So technically the right side of my face is usually photographs better. Usually nobody is symmetrical. We've all got serious asymmetry going on. So the asymmetry in your face is going to make a difference about which direction you photograph better. And the other thing is lighting. Lighting is so tricky because you can look fine in a mirror with really bad light because your eyes are a super effective camera and your brain is doing a lot of adjustments to the image that's coming in through your eyeballs. So a lot of times one of the surprising and shocking things about selfies is that you look great in the mirror in the light, but you take the selfie and it looks like shit. And that's just because your camera is not as good as your eye and your brain for processing that image. So you want to avoid harsh overhead light and you want to avoid harsh underlight. And dramatic looks, light can come from the side, one side or the other. And that's usually about angles. Sometimes you can look really bad if you've got harsh light coming from the side. And sometimes you just look really dramatic and cool. So that's just, a matter of adjusting the way that your head is facing in tiny increments, just a little bit at a time, and take that picture again. So that's why ring lights are so good, because the light is not coming harshly from any direction at all. Really good places to take selfies right in front of a window, because that light often, especially if there's like an overhang or something, that light is going to come in soft and hit your face in a flat, nice way. Leonardo da Vinci, famously in his book on just painting techniques, says that his favorite place to put a model for doing a portrait is right in the doorway of their house underneath a white muslin piece of fabric. And he's right. When I was in a classical atelier art school where they had us do all of these methods that were, 1,000 years old, we had a skylight in the warehouse space that we were in, and we got on a big ass ladder and we hung that white piece of muslin over the skylight, and it made a huge difference. It made all of our models, all of our portrait models, just look amazing, because that light is a soft box. That sheet of white material breaks up the beams of light that are coming through and messes them all up and makes them soft, just like putting something powdered through a sifter, and it hits your face in a soft way. And usually soft light is more flattering because it tends to erase weird textures or like overhangs, eye bags, that kind of thing. So, the best light you're going to get is standing in front of just a flat, white, smoothly lit surface. Actually, LED displays in like malls and stuff like that, or a really bright computer monitor, can produce that kind of light, which is handy. They also make clip-on ring lights for cameras. If you want to take your phone out, you can just clip a little ring light. Those are super cheap, battery powered. Those are good for parties and stuff if you're out taking pictures with your friends. And, if you're taking body shots, like if you're taking nudes, a lot can be done with like twisting your torso in certain ways. If you want to make your stomach look smaller, depends on what your goals are, obviously. But if you're looking for like getting closer to the, sort of standard idealized form, there's lots of tricks for that models use and celebrities. Tensing your stomach muscles. You usually don't want to suck in so much because that makes your ribcage stick out in a weird way. Shooting from above, like Cait was talking about, is nice because it hides your double chin. And I would say almost everybody on Earth has a double chin at one angle or another. And that's true unless you've had quite a lot of surgery, because that's just how our neck bends when we move our heads around. Tension in the face, like Cait was talking about, is a big one. She was saying that she does, theater exercises to like stretch out and relax her face. So being able to make facial expressions is connected to also the ability to stop making facial expressions, which is even more difficult. Stuff like, sort of raising your eyebrows softly in a way that kind of opens your eyes up but doesn't wrinkle your forehead. That's a really subtle muscle movement, and it takes practice. So if you're interested in, taking selfies or like actual portraits of yourself, all of this stuff is skills that you can learn. None of it is impossible. Models who are really good at what they do, like the supermodels of the 90s, all of those women had incredible muscle control of their faces. And some really good ones to look at are Mila Jovovich, who was a supermodel in the 90s before she started doing mostly movies, she was just more interested in doing that. But as a model in high fashion campaigns, she was very expressive. And it's interesting to look at those techniques and sort of apply them to yourself, because even if you don't look like a model, if you're not 7 feet tall and 100 pounds, those techniques of moving your body and moving your face are still going to benefit you. And it's still an interesting and useful skill to have, even if it's just something that you do for fun. So I support it. I support taking selfies. I support posting them. And I especially support educating yourself about the little tricks that people use to make themselves look better on a computer screen, because that is a brain worm and it can fuck you up really bad to just be scrolling through thousands of pictures a day of people who look perfect. It sucks. It fucks you up. It's so bad, and I believe so strongly in it that the pictures that I post now, one of my jobs right now is modeling. I've got a Patreon where I just post modeling photos. And one of the things that I do when I post a photo shoot is I have a retouching disclosure at the bottom of the post. And the retouching disclosure says, this picture was edited in the following ways. And I'll say, I used Lightroom to adjust the exposure and the light. I erased some zits. I erased some cellulite. I erased some stretch marks. I did, body tuning or whatever it is that I do. And I'll just post it there, because having that information, it really helps your brain. You're not looking at a real raw picture of a person as it appeared in space. You're looking at a piece of work that somebody did little adjustments to, that somebody marked up.
And just like as an individual person, something that I find like weirdly helpful, weirdly enlightening is go download I don't know, Face App or like the Beauty Plus, or like the strongest image editing software you can find, and run a couple of your pictures through it, because it is unbelievable how much you can change your face, your body, everything about your face in just a couple of clicks. And being able to see how quickly and how easily and how much you can change, the entire way that you look, it'll help you to identify that, in other people in the future, and also kind of break you, like Eliza said, you're just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And it'll be able to break you out of thinking that, this is what all these people really look like, so there must be something really wrong with me. But there's not. Like I have a pretty yassified picture of myself. I knew it was
coming. I fucking
as my Twitter avatar right now. And the way that I did that is I just went on to Face App, through like 6 different processes over the top of each other, and cranked them all up to 11. And it does create that kind of ridiculous caricature. But in the process of doing that, you do see that, if I had taken that down to maybe like, 1 or 2, it is still, you can still tell that it's me, but like I wasn't even aware of how well it worked until I downloaded it just for the purpose of making, this kind of caricature. But I didn't even know how well it worked until I downloaded it, did a couple of clicks, and I was like, oh, okay. It's not, the technology's gotten so advanced that it's not easy to recognize anymore, because you're like, a computer probably couldn't do that, but it can so easily. No one looks like that. That's not what anyone looks like. And seeing, like, looking at it, throwing a couple of filters over your pics and being like, that's not what I look like at all, helps you recognize that in the future.
Yeah. You can start to spot things. You can start to be like, okay, if this model was really posing like this, her ribs would be sticking out more. Or I know for a fact that a model that was bending over this way would have tummy rolls. So they've definitely erased those tummy rolls. I know that for a fact. And one of the things I learned doing, like, runway shows and being backstage with models getting dressed and undressed is even these women who were 6 feet tall and 100 pounds and looked perfect in all of their photos and were way more professional than I was. If I got in line to get onto the runway behind this bitch, I see her cellulite. I see it. It's in the backstage unflattering light, top-down light. She's bending over, or she's like flexing or something. Everybody has stretch marks. Everybody has cellulite. Absolutely everyone has a mustache, has zits, has acne scars from when they were a kid, or chickenpox scars. I'm covered in chickenpox scars. Stuff like that, and the sheer amount of work that all of these makeup and hair artists had to do on these women to make them look presentable, to walk down a runway for 30 seconds. Women who were 19 years old and perfect still had to sit in a makeup chair for 2 hours and then walk down a runway that was professionally lit, So looking at it and learning about it as an art form, as a skill, as opposed to something that is innate. And I think to a certain extent, beauty is innate. That's a kind of a different conversation. But in terms of just like presentation of how people look, that's all skill. That's all craft, So I want everybody to put that into their brains, adjust their worldviews. Maybe it'll kill some of the brain worms that we all got going on. It helps. It helps to know about this stuff. Absolutely. I guess that's it for me. Anybody else got closing remarks?
I just agree in that like I can sit here and tell you, as someone who knew a lot less about Photoshop 5 years ago than I do now, it like I stand before you as testament that it does change how you think of this stuff.
Mhm.
And it'll, like, as a side like of it, like there's also stuff that I just have less trouble grasping conceptually. I don't know, like something about learning how photos get processed in Photoshop did help me understand, like, a larger complexity of design, and also just making things look good. It's effort. Almost nothing looks good just off of a single click, basically.
Right.
I think it's also worthwhile to note that what Eliza and Cait have been talking about is also just like it is a part of the work. It is a cultivated, considered thing. Like your outward appearance to others oftentimes is part of your work, which is, it's a discipline unto itself. Not just, there's obviously the makeup work and stuff, but also, I mean, I think about this at one of the jobs I'm working on, like anyone in the front facing part of the building, especially now because the mask mandates are basically done. So they are all very considerate about like how they are aesthetically, and like, sometimes they will have like shit for touch-ups and various like concealers, etc. Just because that's their bread and butter. They've got to do that, and they've got to like nod and smile at sometimes very courteous, sometimes very impolite people. Any public facing job, like that's going to be a different discipline versus just the composition itself.
It's true.
Cait, I wanted to give you an opportunity to plug yourself or anything. I know you do like some Twitch streaming, but just also if you wanted to talk about where you're at on Twitter before.
So I am on punished_Cait, and that is CAIT, not KATE. Punished_Cait. I was doing some Twitch streaming for a while, but I'm about to start a new job, so that might have to, get pushed off a little further.
No worries. Congrats on that.
Thank you. I'm actually going to be working at a cemetery, which
So
is
cool.
That's what's up.
That sounds fucking cool.
Are you gonna make the plots or dig a hole?
No, I'm gonna be
Dig hole. Dig
killing.
hole, dig
I'm gonna be
hole.
Job security.
Job
He's
out there
security.
in full
Making clients.
Cinderella
Yep.
outfit, just
lead-
digging holes.
But the other thing I actually did want to my only closing remark is that the reason I wasn't familiar with Space Mountain Ghost Galaxy, I looked it up, and it is in Hong Kong Disneyland.
Oh.
No, it's in the
I was
California one. I posted a video of it in the California
Hong Kong?
one. Well, no, it's in California. I've been on it.
Ruben, are you sure about that?
It might have been.
I was there.
It
Let's
might
gaslight
not, it
Ruben.
might have been a
love
it might have been a
gaslighting Ruben.
rebrand, Ruben.
Disneyland Space
That
Mountain
feeling you accidentally end
during
up in Hong
Halloween
Kong.
becomes
Hong Kong
Space
Disneyland.
Mountain.
Ruben has smoked on that shit that
Hong-
leaves him in
Hong
Hong Kong
Kong
Space
Disneyland.
Mountain.
Oh no.
It looks like it's
Is
just
that?
a cosmetic overlay. For
Yeah, it's a
regular
cosmetic
Space
overlay of
Mountain.
Space Mountain. They make it a little spooky, and the music's a little scarier, and you see like a
Damn
little hologram
Did you-
Oh,
ghost.
maybe it is.
Space
Did you
ghost.
just want to ask Cait
Oh.
if she had?
I
been on
wanted to
it?
ask if you were at that Disneyland, was the only difference that they put a little bit of ghosts in the stars?
My fucking god!
No.
You can go watch footage
Oh
of
my
a
God.
regular
The-
mountain run and a Ghost Galaxy run, and there's like a scary ghoul in
Yeah.
the star projection. And I was like,
Massaging
is that
my
all they did?
temples.
I gotta know.
Oh no, the ghosts are always in there.
Space Mountain
Yeah,
is a
Ruben.
haunted house ride
Ruben,
year
Ruben, you
round.
didn't know
Ruben.
that?
My fucking god!
The Space Mountain cars actually go through the haunted mansion at
Oh,
one point.
no.
Like, you
Uh-huh.
didn't know that?
They do? That's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
You think they'd have more space or budget at Disneyland to have a separate Ghost Galaxy and the haunted house is a separate zone?
Well, Disney
Kinda
No,
cheap.
no.
thing is not
I just want to
efficient.
say, I'm gonna have to eat crow here, Ruben. You're right. It was at Hong Kong Disneyland, and it is current at Disneyland, I guess.
Oh, all right. Well, hey.
I was not, yeah.
We're a humble show.
As a
Galaxy,
as you know, as in my own defense, you're actually, this sounds like an excuse, but also is just a very funny fact. When you are working, each land, so I worked in Fantasyland, you have a very, very, very specific uniform, which they call a costume. And if you are on stage, meaning on, at clocked in at work, if you are on stage in your costume, they do not want you in the other lands. They don't want your fancy little Norwegian high-waisted green pants in Tomorrowland, where all the cool robot stuff is. So
up the immersion.
They never
Literally.
did you ever try to shop we could act like we're lost. We could make it like an expeditionary kind of thing. We take a couple crew members. We have to clean up some vomit. What is this strange place? And your leader hosing. Make a little show of it while you sweep up the vomit.
It does take some a little bit of walking to get from land to land. So luckily I never managed to just wander in there by accident, but
get executed by the Goofy Squad.
All right.
Well,
all right.
Yeah, needless to say, we'd love to talk about that more later.
Yeah. On that note, yeah, everybody, it's been a wonderful time. I'm wondering if my DMT death dream will explicitly involve cross-contamination of Disney worlds, and if I'm crossing over into one of them. People that would be joining me doing this, as always, Jake, the producer, Ruben, Eliza Gager, sometimes an elf, Lucy, always working in the coal mines.
Thank you,
Cait,
Lucy.
Appreciate you being a wonderful guest. It was nice speaking to you, and hopefully we talk about who's lived and who's died when you've been getting like your rare Disney / I guess Pokemon gym badges. I appreciate everyone's time. I'm Michelle Perez. This has been the Pig Iron Podcast. Good night.